Well, welcome back to the channel. Out here enjoying a beautiful fall day. Probably the last decent warm day we're going to have this year. It's supposed to get up to about 80 here at the end of October. I'm not always a big fan of living in central Pennsylvania, but this time of year makes it a lot more palatable. Anyhow, let's get back to the Scram 411. So I had a recent trip, spent a long weekend down in Virginia and Kentucky in some beautiful riding area. Try to get down there at least once a year. And came back with some interesting updates and observations on this thing. And the one thing I can comment on now with authority is this touring seat, they call it. I have a separate video on this if you haven't seen it. And originally I had commented that the seat really wasn't that much different than the original one. But I can tell you now that it is pretty much all day comfortable. Something I could not say about the original. And it's not much different as far as absorption, foam, appearance, anything, but it definitely is different. I don't know what they've done with the foam or what have you in there, but it definitely is superbly superior to the original. The other thing that came out after that weekend was how well this thing does on two-lane back roads. And if you want to ride it in a sporty fashion, you absolutely can. On a twisty road, keep up with bikes that have a lot more power. The only thing they're going to pull away from is on the straights. But if you're just wandering around the back roads and doing some cranking through the hairpins and so forth, this bike is certainly capable. I rode with a couple of V-Stroms, some KTMs, bikes of that nature, all with, double the displacement almost of this thing, and came away very impressed with how it was. Everybody else commented that they were surprised at how well it keeps up. So the reason for that is this bike has a power band that is different maybe than what a lot of people are used to. You don't have to rev the snot out of this thing to make it go. And that's a mistake that I think a lot of people, when they buy these Himalayans and Scrams, don't understand, is that the peak power, which really we should be talking about torque here, is more in the mid-range of this bike. Now, this bike doesn't have a tach, as we all know. The Himalayans do. And I'm estimating, after talking to Himalayan people about this, that we're talking about probably around 5,000 RPM is probably where the power starts to fade on this thing. You can rev it higher, you can wind it out a whole lot more, but you're not really generating power, not usable power. So if you stay within the power band of this thing and use its torque, and not try to wring its neck every time you want to go, and shift at the right times, you'll drop right down into the bottom of that torque curve again. And that's what makes all the difference in riding one of these. So you have to adjust your thinking a little bit here. Winding it out till the valves float's not going to make you go any faster. And we're coming up on 3,000 miles. It's soon time for the next service. And one thing that I've noticed here that is going to be a factor is the tire. This is the original Seat tire that comes on the bike when it's new. And as you can tell, we're just about done there with that tire. So I'm going to be ordering something. I haven't yet decided on what I'm going to replace it with. I actually wasn't terribly unhappy with the Seat. I thought it did pretty well overall. Now that it's worn down to this, it's not so great on the gravel, I can tell you. It gets a little squirrely. But other than the fact that it's wearing out at 3,000 miles, it actually did okay. And my thought was that, well, it's an Indian-made tire, it's probably really cheap. Well, doesn't really matter if it's cheap or not. In the U.S., you can't buy it. Nobody sells Seat tires here in the U.S., so cross that off the list. So I'm looking at a number of alternatives. I do like this tread pattern. I think it's a good compromise between pavement and off-road. I'm going to try to duplicate that. I think there's a Metzeler that's a pretty good match. and possibly a Michelin. So we're going to look into that, and I'll report back on the choice in another video. All right, that's it for this quick update. Probably going to be putting it away for the winter here shortly, but out enjoying these final fall days here in central Pennsylvania. As always, thank you for coming along and watching, and we'll talk to you soon.